This weekend, Fort Worth ISD says a substitute teacher commented on an X post calling for ICE to raid Northside High School. It says in part, quote, "I have so many students who don't even speak English. They have to communicate through their iPhone translator with me. The government should overhaul the Texas school system." Fort Worth ISD says the district is investigating the post, and per district protocol, the employee is not allowed on campus during the investigation.
Turns out that racist Texas teacher is now suffering the consequences of his own actions after inviting Trump's Gestapo into his school. And I say that because he's not just under investigation by the district. He's also under investigation apparently by Twitter sleuths, who have also uncovered even more disturbing tweets about his own students that's probably going to become part of the district's investigation as well. For example, in response to a tweet about Trump disbanding a school safety board to prevent school shootings, he responded to that saying, "I'm a teacher and I could care less." I think he means he couldn't care less. "Kids are horribly undereducated these days. I teach high school kids who are on an elementary school level." You know, this kind of feels like a self-report to me, because if your students are behind and you are their teacher, perhaps you are the reason why they're behind. But to show you what I mean, he responded to an attack on a supposedly woke, I guess, teacher by libs of TikTok with a barely literate post, which leads me to believe that he really is the culprit as to why his students are struggling. He said, "I teach with these fucking libtards every day, and that's what I talk to no one at work except the kids." I think he means that's why I talk to no one at work except the kids. But it's funny because, you know, you're saying everybody else is stupid, these libtards are stupid, these kids are stupid, but yet you're kind of talking like a caveman yourself. When you read it aloud, it sounds like a caveman. But I mean, I thought you said that you couldn't talk to the kids because they don't speak English, hence why you called ICE to deport them, right? But I mean, I feel like saying that he called ICE or called on ICE to deport his own students, that's not clear enough, because he didn't just subtweet ICE or casually float the idea in a random tweet. He literally replied to ICE to tell them to come for his students, to get their attention, so that way they do come for his students. So that's the kind of person that we're dealing with here, and I'm assuming that he expected ICE to just show up anyway after Trump opened the door to ICE raids being conducted in schools and also churches and hospitals. But it turns out it's not going to be that easy, because school districts around the country are taking action to protect their students, rightfully so. And those students are legally entitled to an education regardless of their immigration status. And that defense from teachers of their students has led to stochastic terrorist slobs like Libs of TikTok, whose fiance left her, by the way, melting down in response and accusing schools of breaking the law by educating immigrants about their rights. And, you know, if I had to guess, this teacher was also triggered like Chaya Raichik of Libs of TikTok when he saw the outpouring of support for immigrants in his own community.
A protest in Fort Worth on Sunday called for the protection of children in North Texas schools. A third-grade teacher in Fort Worth ISD says her students are afraid to come to class.
Yes, just on Friday, 3 of my parents said that they were not sending their kids to school anymore because they're afraid.
A fear Jeanette Martinez says an 8-year-old shouldn't have.
They don't know. They don't know all this is evil, and they're just trying to get an education. Children should not be afraid.
And that right there gives me hope. Seeing the community come together and speak out for those who can't speak for themselves right now is exactly what's needed at this moment. But at the same time, I've got to admit, it also enrages me because people shouldn't have to come out and say that. Like, we shouldn't be having to do any of this. People shouldn't have to say that children, regardless of their immigration status, shouldn't be afraid to go to school. I feel like a civilized society should just agree with that automatically. It should be the default moral position of everyone, but apparently not. And to be clear, children are the focus here because they're the most vulnerable, but nobody should be afraid for their lives. Nobody should be afraid to go to work. But that is the kind of climate that Trump has cultivated. And yesterday, I was talking to my niece, and she told me that since Trump has been in office, she's been afraid to go to the grocery store since she's worried that ICE might question her or illegally detain her. And hearing her say that to me genuinely broke my fucking heart into a million pieces, because my niece is one of the most strong and confident people I've ever known. So the thought of these fascist pricks breaking her spirit was almost too much for me to bear. Now, to be clear, my niece is a U.S. citizen, but she's a Latina. And the fact that she and people who look like her, regardless if they're citizens or not, are worried to just go out in public because they're afraid that they're going to be racially profiled by Trump's Gestapo is infuriating, to put it mildly. But with that being said, within these first 2 weeks of Trump's administration, good people around the country have made it very clear. If you want to get to them, you're going to have to go through us first. And this unwillingness to stand down in the face of fascism has actually thrown a wrench in Trump's mass deportation plans. But don't take it from me. Take it from Trump's immigration czar, Tom Homan.
Sanctuary cities are making it very difficult to arrest the criminals. For instance, Chicago, very well educated. They've been educated how to defy ICE, how to hide from ICE. And I've seen many pamphlets from many of the NGOs. Here's how you escape ICE from arresting you. Here's what you need to do. They call it Know Your Rights. I call it How to Escape Arrest. There's a warrant for your arrest, and they tell you how to hide from ICE. No, don't open your door. Don't answer questions.
That's right, asshole. We are going to make sure that they know their rights. And the fact that so many immigrants are informed has inhibited Trump's ability to deport as many people as he'd like, which has led to officials issuing quotas in order to pressure ICE to ramp up the arrests. So immigrant rights activists have already made it very difficult for this administration to deport people simply by informing everyone about their rights. And for good measure, I'm going to say it again. You have the right to remain silent. If they ask to search you, you have the right to ask them for a warrant, and you should. If they ask you to sign something, don't. If you have papers, carry them with you at all times, and I'm going to link you to English and Spanish scripts down below from the ACLU. I would encourage you to memorize them. Also, if you're a citizen and you see ICE, yell La Migra as loud as you can to notify immigrants in the vicinity that the Gestapo is here. Let them know of the Gestapo's presence, and you will make them safer. Everyone getting on the same page right now about this, that is one way to push back, and it's already having an effect in a concrete way. But I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture because this administration's mass deportation effort has only just begun. But they will get increasingly aggressive as time goes on. In fact, Tom Homan has made it very clear he is going to go into schools if need be.
Middle schools, elementary schools, you going to go into those?
How many MS-13 members are the age of 14 to 17? Many of them. So, look, if it's a national security threat, public safety threat, and what you need to understand is a case by case.
Case by case. In other words, yes, we will send our immigration Gestapo into schools and pull children out of classrooms to deport them. Now, there is going to be a time where that's probably going to come, but right now, they're treading carefully because they saw how severe the backlash was when Trump implemented family separation policy the last time he was president. I mean, the pictures of children crying as they were being torn away from their parents led to national outrage and forced them to end the program abruptly. But now that enough time has passed and most Americans support mass deportations again, they're trying to maintain public support as long as they possibly can, not because the Trump administration cares what the public thinks, but because actual resistance, people protesting and putting their bodies on the line, that is going to make it so much more difficult for them to deport as many people as they say they want to deport. So they're starting slowly, and they're trying to maintain a consistent flow of propaganda in order to maintain consent from the masses as long as they can. And as you saw, he only raised the specter of going into schools insofar as a teenager was a member of MS-13. So right now, they're trying to prime you to think that every single immigrant that they're deporting is a criminal, even kids, and that is on purpose. Right now, Dr. Phil and Fox News are going on ICE ride-alongs to document the criminals they're deporting, rapists, murderers, and whatnot, so as to create this impression that it's only the bad guys that are being deported, but that is pure propaganda. I need you to understand that. They want all of them gone. They have admitted this time and time again. In fact, just this week, Lauren Beetlejuice Boebert, a sitting lawmaker, said the only DEI she supports is deporting every illegal. No human being is illegal. Fuck you for saying that, by the way. But she's not making this distinction between criminals and non-criminals. Most Republicans, including Trump, no longer even make the distinction between documented and undocumented immigrants. They want them all gone, unless they're white. So you have to be cognizant of the show that they're putting on for all of us. It serves two main purposes. It pacifies the masses, and it instills fear in immigrant communities. And immigrant activist Amy Torres was on Democracy Now!, and I think that she put it best.
If you are a bystander and you see ICE in your neighborhood, you see ICE on your block, you take out your phone and you start filming, because if Dr. Phil can do it, you better bet that you can do it too. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is an administration that is built for the billionaire class. Yes, ICE's current directives are built on racism. It's built on the post 9/11 nationalism that bore Department of Homeland Security to begin with. But this is also a gift to private prison corporations. That's very true here in New Jersey, where the world's largest private prison corporation, CoreCivic, is looking to expand its footprint and to challenge our ban on immigration detention. It's true in Newark, where Geo Group, one of the other largest private prison corporations, is looking to expand here in Newark, New Jersey, and in other cities across the state. So yes, whether it's 100 arrests today or 1,000 arrests today, it is built on fear, so that if we can't detain people for profit, we are detaining them in the isolation of their own homes. We are segregating them from society. We are making people so fearful that they're withdrawing their kids from school. They're too fearful to see a doctor. They're too fearful to go to their pharmacy. You know, outside of Newark, we had a pharmacy raid in Paterson here in New Jersey just this weekend. And what that does is segregate society so that if the federal administration can't physically remove you, you are physically removing yourself into a shadow economy, into places where you can't stand up or you don't feel confident standing up for your rights.
Yeah. So if the rest of us are separated from immigrant communities and we're only being fed imagery of criminals being deported, we're more likely to support mass deportation. It's called manufacturing consent. And even though immigrants will be harmed the most, citizens are also going to be victimized by Trump's Gestapo as well, which is why this propaganda effort is all the more important. But on that note, citizens have already been swept up in Trump's mass deportation. I say this because last week in Newark, there was a disastrous ICE raid at a seafood depot where Trump's Gestapo stormed in without a warrant and detained multiple people, including, by the way, U.S. citizens and a U.S. veteran. Now, they did pick up undocumented workers as well, but we don't actually know if they were criminals as well. Neither does ICE, apparently. So the raids are not targeted, contrary to popular belief, and the goal is to make everyone, including citizens, feel panic and scare everyone into giving up their neighbors. But that can't happen if we are a united front and everybody knows their rights. And it just goes to show you that, you know, it's not just the criminals being targeted, even if they want you to think that that is the case. But if they do nab a criminal, they are going to publicize it as much as possible to give you the impression that that's indicative of most detentions and deportations. But that is propaganda, right? But as it stands right now, Trump's administration, they still think that they have a mandate since public support currently is on their side. And they're trying to do as much as they can before the honeymoon period is over. And make no mistake about it, that day will come. And Anand Giridharadas described on MSNBC what he believed would be the tipping point for Americans where they would withdraw consent from mass deportations.
When you start having Gestapo raids in America, and we start becoming a country where, as in East Germany, a knock on the door is the thing people are thinking about instead of the brilliant idea they want to go create, then we are moving very, very far from the president worrying about what regular people need, right? He is distracting people with this flurry of activity, but none of these images you're seeing are going to make your life better. None of these things, contrary to popular belief, have anything to do with the still high price of eggs. None of these things will make it easier to start a business. None of these things will make it easier for people to get the education they need, change their lives, leave their kids better off. This is all a distraction, shock and awe, as you said earlier, so that Donald Trump can do one thing. And you saw it at the inauguration, telegraphed to you, enrich his billionaire cronies, enrich his oligarch friends. That is what he is actually doing when he's not busy releasing his crypto coins. And all of this is sort of bread and circuses for people to stare at while he's robbing you from the back.
And that is a very, very important point. So many lives are going to be destroyed by this administration. And after seeing tens of thousands, if not millions of immigrants get deported, the Americans who yearned for mass deportation are going to be forced to come to the realization that even though more immigrants are gone, their lives still aren't getting better, right? They were told that the immigrants were to blame for all of their problems, but they were deported. Trump said he deported all the criminals at least. And at some point, that will be evidence that they were sold a lie. And they're going to have to decide whether or not they should believe their own lived experience or the propaganda that they were fed. But if and when they come to that realization, it will only be temporary because as a nation, collectively, we have the memory of a goldfish. So we're going to have a small window of time to act. And that is when we all have to pounce. We have to help them become class conscious and explain to them that immigrants aren't their enemy. They never were. Billionaires are all of our common enemy. It is incumbent on all of us to get them to understand that they have more in common with every immigrant than a single billionaire. And not all of them are going to be receptive to that message. But we have to at least try. And I think that our odds of success and getting them to understand that are going to increase if we start planting those seeds right now.